r/AskReddit by Reddify. What's the cheapest thing your family did growing up? Instead of going on a day out to the zoo or the cinema or something like that, we would go to Glasgow Sheriff Court to watch people get sentenced. Great day out tbh. Me and a couple friends did this in high school. It was a mildly enjoyable way to spend an afternoon. Did you also see guys who were being sentenced for attacking people with samurai swords they had concealed down their tracksuits? Growing up there were 4 of us kids, and our parents would rotate kid of the day, and on Fridays wherever was kid of the day got to pick where we went to dinner. My stepfather would distract us in the basement, while my mom did a dinner based off the restaurant that was picked then. When she was done she'd come downstairs, and we'd all go for a ride around block then come right back home to the restaurant. That was our going out to eat as children. That's lovely in many ways. A good option in a bad situation. I think this is a good option in any situation. More families should do stuff like this. Sounds like fun for the kids, while also helping with the budget. My dad decided that he wanted to give his kids a good life, so he went to college when my brother and I were little. We were super poor. My parents would buy 25-pound bags of rice, oats, and other grains to save money. One such time, we opened a bag of rice and some of it was wiggling. It was infested with maggots. We tossed all the rice in the freezer to kill the little guys. Then put it all in water. Because the maggots float. Skim the floaters off the top and you're good to go. We were poor. But my brother and I never went hungry. Thanks mom and dad. My parents bought groceries at a thrift store. One time I was eating my cereal when I noticed it was moving in the milk. My dad laughed and said not to worry about the bugs because they don't have bones. Good source of protein was my parents' go-to. My grandmother used to babysit me before I was school aged. She never had a license, so we took the city bus everywhere and walked. One of our walking routes was past a country club. Every time we passed it, she would tell me to go look at the pool. So I used to run up there. We've passed the bushes and look through the cracks of the fence and look at the pool and the kids playing it. I can see it clear as day in my head. So growing up I never had access to a pool. But my grandmother used to let me look at one. I laughed to myself thinking how sad it is to look at rich kids playing in a pool. I thought there was going to be a while my grandmother went into the locker room and stole windbreakers, while grandma sucked off the elder pool cleaner to let us through behind the fire exit. My mom bought some of those Guess triangles and sewed them on some no-name jeans for my sister for Christmas. That's pretty much all they were doing at some Guess factory in Vietnam or wherever. But that's basically the difference between poor and wealthy. Having someone else do it for you. My mom saw no sense wasting $sign on Kleenex. Need to blow your nose? Use dirty clothing from wash basket. Or whatever you just took off. We also used whatever paper product was available for bathroom tissue. Paper napkin. Paper towel. Used facial washcloths for sanitary pads when no pads on hand. We also bought canned Vegas from a prison cannery. I could go on and on. We never had money for basic household needs, but always had money for mom's cigarettes. That last part really hurt. I hate seeing kids that are lacking basic needs. But the parents still have the money for cigarettes. Beer/liquor. Or drugs. I once added up the money my mom spent on cigarettes throughout my lifetime. It was enough to put me through college. We always saved wrapping paper. It really took the fun out of opening presents. You always had to be careful to not rip it and not crumple it, so you could use it as many times as possible. When I grew up I discovered that wrapping paper costs about $3 per acre, but I still can't bring myself to rip the stuff. We used the Sunday comics. They were printed in color and therefore counted as wrapping paper. As someone who grew up loving comics, reading the wrapping paper was just as good as the dollar store toy. My dad wasn't happy with the service at our local hospital when I was born. So when my mom became pregnant with my younger brother in 1978, he went to the library. He took out some books on midwifery and delivered John in their bedroom. I was 8 years old and it seemed reasonable to me at the time. He did it again in '83 when Teddy was born. The morning after Teddy was born, my mom handed me a bulging garbage bag and said, "Mark, take this out to the garbage." Make sure you get it in the can with the lid on tight. It has my placenta in it. I don't want the dogs getting into it. Library saves the day again. At least, that was the placenta in that bag. Right? Not what was on the other end of the umbilical cord. Honestly, I didn't look. I can tell you that my youngest brother is alive and well. But for all I know, there could have been 2 placentas and a dead twin in that bag. It may be cheap, but it was cool as hell. My uncle made me and my brother a go-kart out of a broken lawnmower. A lawnmower in my household would have had to be completely destroyed before it would ever be considered for use on something so frivolous, lol. I swear the lawnmower I used growing up was 40 years old. My family still doesn't have a gas mower. My dad and I would play hit the log with the rock. We played it a few times a week when he got home from work and I loved it. I would get home from school before him and gather about 30-50 good rocks for throwing. Little did I know, Dad was stressed at work with very little money and that was what he came up with to play a few evenings a week. My dad was embarrassed by this game and some of his homemade toys, although I look very fondly on these memories. There's no job application or interview for being a father. But sometimes the right people find the job anyways. Very true. I think some guys don't understand the influence they have over their children and minimize their impact on a child. I was lucky. A family outing consisted of going for a drive. We would all pile into the family car, and my dad would drive to some place we hadn't been before to look around. We didn't stop for food or to shop. Mom would pack some snacks and drinks. That just sounds like a road trip. Road trip to see the road. Look kids. The Taconic State Parkway. We had a meat night once a week. The meat was a can of tuna mixed into a box of whatever noodles or ice and mix could be had cheapest. We could have just been straight poor. We had meat every day, but only because my dad was an avid hunter. In where I grew up, a day license costs $20, and you can get a bonus antlerless tag for $12. So, assuming you already have a rifle, rounds, clothing, etc., you can harvest 2 deer for $32. If you butcher the deer yourself, you're getting at least 70 pounds of meat from those 2 deer, quite a bit more if the animal is large. I get that some people are opposed to hunting, but it can be a good, affordable source of healthy protein. Of course, many people go nuts on expensive clothing and don't process their own animals. Then it can become an expensive hobby. Edit. I eat meat rarely. When I do, I know where that flesh came from. I know the slight sorrow that comes when you kill an animal. Slight is an odd term, but I can't think of another. Adrenaline made it near impossible to shoot straight, and when I did take the animal, I felt both pride, clean shot, minimal suffering, and sorrow. I didn't have to kill this animal. I've taken out my knife, removed the still steaming innards, smelled mammalian guts, and hauled the carcass home to be butchered. We ate it all. Humans are animals. The universe is huge and cold and dark. I don't think anyone that eats meat can really justify being opposed to hunting in this instance. Take extra sauce packets from a restaurant. And napkins. We had a constantly replenished assortment of paper napkins in our pantry. Late 20s. Still do this. Lived in a burned out garage. It had a dirt floor. No glass in the windows, so we covered them with cardboard and curtains. There was no door in the doorway, so we made one out of a refrigerator box. No power, so we used candles for light, and cooked on an open fire that had an oven rack suspended over it with cement blocks. No plumbing aside from a water spigot, so we went to the bathroom in the bushes and bathed in a kiddie pool. It was an interesting 6 months. And what are you doing now? Were your parents able to find work and a home for you? This was shortly after my parents split up. My mom had a job making minimum wage, but it wasn't enough to cover rent and bills on anything available at the time. $3.35/HR. We eventually got into an apartment where the rent was based on income, so we were paying very little. As for what I'm doing now, I'm working in a warehouse loading trucks while learning website design in my spare time. If you are enjoying the video, please give a thumbs up and leave a comment. My dad would bring cheese slices in his pocket to fast food places because our coupons were for hamburgers, not cheeseburgers. Some places they overcharge for adding a slice of cheese. You know those horses outside the supermarket you paid a quarter to make it rock back and forth? My dad used to just put us on them and shake it by hand. They were always broken when I was a kid because dads used to shake them with their hands. My grandfather saved all his old glass eyes. He had one due to a war injury. It had to be replaced every couple of years. He saved them so we wouldn't use expensive charcoal to create the eyes on snowmen. Unintentional benefit. The hyper-realistic snowman eyes scared the hell out of every passing motorist. I'm laughing so hard at this. Condiment sandwiches for all 2 meals. Miracle Whip sandwiches MMM. We had slices of gouda cheese on our Miracle Whip sandwiches. Till I was a lot better off than I thought. Make sure to like and subscribe so we can watch together.